Hey guys, this is Pete Thompson with the Kalamazoo Chinese Martial Arts Club. Hoping quarantine is treating you well. Um, Continued series of videos in the meantime. Again, these are mostly meant for students of our lineage, but welcome any and all commentary. Today I was going to talk to you guys a little bit about horse stance, the hows, the whys, the requirements, and how we do it. Horse stance you'll find through basically any Chinese martial art, most of the Korean, Okinawan, Japanese martial arts as well. One of the distinctive parts of our style is our, what I would call, almost abnormal horse stance. So we'll start by going through kind of the requirements of our horse stance, how it differs from most of what you'll see out there, and then kind of why we do it the way we do it. So to begin with, our horse stance is shoulder width apart. The majority of what you see out there is double shoulder width apart. So my feet are parallel, and when I say my feet are parallel, I actually mean from the second toe to the inside of the heel, right? So I don't want big toe to inside of the heel. Reason for this is when my feet are parallel from the second toe to the inside of the heel, that means my hips are parallel, which is a big thing within our horse stance. So once I have that, I break at the hip, not at the knees, right? If you break at the knees and sit into the horse stance, your knees are going to shoot forward past your toes, puts a lot of strain on the knees, not good for power, not good for the knee health. So I break at the hip and I sit. Now, this looks a little bit similar to a low bar squat, but not quite, right? So I'm not sitting back so far. It's not a tilt here, it's a break and a drop. So basic requirements again: feet parallel, break at the hip, drop. You'll see I have a straight line from the crown of my head down into the perineum, the straight spinal posture. So again, unlike a squat, I don't want to arch my back here and puff out my chest. I also don't want to be hunching forward. The straight spine is going to allow us to drive power from the legs up into the upper body. If you start breaking your spinal posture, you start loosening and losing power. So again, you might ask, well, first question might be, why shoulder width apart? Pretty easy answer. Again, looking at how we're using it. So with the feet parallel and the hips parallel, this is going to let us use both our posterior and anterior chains in the movement. Easy way to get a feel for this, if you have a wall or partner to practice pushing with, and you go pigeon-toed, right? And drop and push, you're going to feel that power coming up the inside of the legs, the belly, and out. Kind of hard to push people with just the anterior chain, but possible. I would recommend you try it. Then again, as I point my feet outwards, and I drop and I push, you'll feel the power up the back of the legs, the butt, up the back, and out. And again, actually quite a bit easier to push people this way, but only when our hips are parallel can we really tie into both the anterior and the posterior chain, which is part of the whole body power that we talk about being in everything. So that's why our feet need to be parallel. Now you may ask, well, okay, so why so narrow? And a lot of that comes down to knee health, and I would say somewhat flexibility. So with shoulder width apart, pretty easy to drop down into this, right? Knee is a hinge joint, so it only moves forward and back. So we don't want to be straining it side to side. Is I get this double shoulder width apart stance. One, it's harder to maintain that that parallel position. Is I sit down, unless I have a whole lot of hip flexibility, the tendency is to put kind of the shearing pressure on the sides of the knees. So I'm not saying that it can't be done if you have quite a bit of hip flexibility, but I will say that most people can't do it. And I would also hazard that it's suboptimal. Not quite sure. To be honest, I don't have the flexibility to go double shoulder width apart, keep proper foot alignment, and keep proper knee alignment. But I can do it at shoulder width apart with no problem. So that's kind of the why of our horse stance. Again, if you look at a lot of other styles, you'll see their toes pointed out and a little bit more upright. And again, they're driving through the posterior chain. Nothing wrong with this per se. Depends on how they're using it. You see a lot of karate styles here, some of the other kung fu styles doing the same thing. No big deal. Perfectly valid as long as their knees are tracking their toes. They're using the knee as a hinge joint. Not going to hurt you, depending on how they're training, why they're training. Could even make sense. Not quite the way that we are training. So again, when we do this, we want our feet parallel, shoulder width apart, and when I say shoulder width apart, I really mean almost to the inside of the shoulder. So we don't want, again, at the outside of the shoulders, I can start getting this, but a little bit harder to maintain. So again, you'll need a little bit more flexibility for that wider stance. Inside of the shoulders shouldn't be a problem. Other thing to talk about just a little bit is depth. So again, you'll see different people doing it different ways. I'll have another video on this later, but one of the important things is to know why you're training the way you're training, right? So if I'm practicing fighting method, probably not dropping too far, right? I don't want to get out of kind of a walking running alignment. So here, right? Pretty high horse stance. And that's, again, kind of more what we'll be using in a fight. For training, depth can be as low as parallel, right? So when the femur is parallel to the ground, that's as low as we want to go. And that's going to build up nice strong legs, nice strong foundation, lets us work on strength and flexibility. Probably not using it that way in a fight, which is fine. Again, training method is good as long as we realize what it is. And I think that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if you have any questions or commentary.